It's the final ORKtober video. Let's read Chapter 5 of War Boss by Mike Brooks from the Warhammer 40,000 universe. The proclamation ran through the camp like buggy fuel through a sick squiggoth. Every orc and grot was talking about it. How old Morgrub had called down the power of the orc gods, and they'd spoken through him in voices like thunder, declaring that this Wah was the mightiest in the galaxy that had ever been seen, and how it was destined to crush everything in its path. How the orcs would rise, and through the power of their combined might, would conquer all other living beings and embody the many-fist destiny of their species. No one questioned the veracity of those stories, or the fact that two different orcs might be telling three different versions. The main thrust of the narrative struck right at the heart of every orc's belief. So it had to be true. And if it was broadly true, who cared about the details? The only question left was which one of the three big bosses was going to take up the mantle of War Boss. None of them had tried yet, and for very good and cunning reasons. When it came right down to it, each one of them was still playing the odds as best they knew how. If Morgrub was right, and there really was a gateway made by the scrawny somewhere under the Humy city that could lead them across the galaxy in no time, then finding it first and staying alive long enough to make sure that every other git knew you'd found it first was the best way of piggybacking off Morgrub's influence and ensuring a seamless transition of authority from Gorsnappa. These were the concepts that orcs understood without even really thinking about them. On the other hand, if one of the other two gits got there first, you could still throw down anyway. It might be a bit messier, and a fair few more traditional snake bites might take issue with how the Warphead's prophecia had been ignored. But so what? Knock enough heads together, and sooner or later, everyone would fall in line, or would be lacking enough head to complain about it any longer. One upshot of the excitement around this novel way of deciding a leadership contest and the general frenzied preparations as each big boss began organizing the orcs under their command to pursue their favored method of attack was that no one had thought to investigate exactly what had happened to make the head of the mega gargant fall off in the first place and instigate this entire state of affairs. And what that meant was that Snaggy Little Tooth, Guffink, Scrock, and Cruffink had managed to get out of and away from it without being hung up by their toes and beaten, fed to the Nasher squigs, used as target practice, or any other painful and likely fatal punishments that would normally have been enacted upon them under the circumstances. It helped that Mech Zogblutz had almost certainly been in the Mega Gargant's head when it had fallen to its fiery doom. And since no orc really paid much attention to which grot was which, unless they were supposed to be doing something for him, that meant they were probably out of the drops on that one. Not that Cruffink seemed particularly confident on that front. "We're gonna die," he moaned, as the four of them scurried through the camp, dodging the feet of orcs as they rushed hither and thither. "They're gonna kill us for this, and it's all your fault, Snaggi." "Who's gonna care?" Snaggi demanded. When old Morgrub had been blathering about the great green, the gods had spoken to him again. It had only been faint, a brushing at the edges of his consciousness, but it had been there nonetheless. He had seen the gate that the weird boy had been talking about. Surely a sign that he was favored. He felt amazing. He felt invincible. He felt 5 feet tall, and as though he were weightless, yet as strong as a mega knob. A thought flitted across his brain. Was this how orcs felt all the time? What you mean? Who's gonna care? Cruffink squeaked. Everyone's gonna care. Of course they're gonna care. Why? Snaggi asked him, swiping a screwdriver that no one seemed to be needing right now. There's a bunch of big bosses what all want to be war boss. You reckon they're gonna be mad that I killed Gore Snapper? They weren't gonna be war boss of the universe otherwise. Keep your voice down, Gruffink hissed at him, and even Squawk looked a little uneasy. Yeah, all right. Maybe no one's coming after us, but that don't mean you just go shouting about it. Shouting about what? All 4 of them whirled around on the spot, because that voice didn't belong to a grot. It was deeper and more resonant. It was Zuckrod, the runt herd. Zuckrod wasn't much more than a youth, with the green of his skin still relatively unscarred, and his build more lanky than bulky. But he'd not gone the way of some young orcs and joined the Storm Boys. Zuckrod was a snakebite, and he'd found his calling in the traditional work of a snakebite, squigs and grots, and successfully beating them until they did what they were supposed to do. That clan produced the most runt herds and was wisely reckoned to also produce the best one. Nothing, Cruffink said immediately and anxiously. We weren't shouting about nothing. Did you hear us shouting about anything? I don't reckon so, 'cause we weren't. He grinned widely. Sounded to me, Zuckrod said slowly, like you was saying something about the war boss. The old war boss. Nah, definitely not, Gruffink said, shaking his head vigorously. Why would we be doing that? We ain't been anywhere near him, or nothing like that. Sounded to me, Zuckrod said, flicking a switch which sent lightning sparks across the metal-toothed jaws of the grab-a-stick he carried as a mark of his trade. Like you was talking about how you killed the old war boss. That's ridiculous. Cruffink said hastily, corrected himself as the grab-a-stick jabbed at him, because a grot did not call anything an orc said or did ridiculous if he wanted to remain in possession of all his limbs. I mean, that's not what was going on. We wasn't saying that. How would we do that? Dunno, Zuckrod said. Maybe you was up in the Mega Gargant and made its head fall off onto him. He grinned, a toothy grin, of an orc whose job it was to hurt grots, who really loved his job anyway, and who now had an excellent reason to indulge himself. Oh, crikey, Guffink whispered as Zuckrod took a step forward. You've gone and done it now, Snaggi. There's no point in running, Zuckrod chuckled. I'll only catch ya. Something snapped inside Snaggi Littletooth. He hadn't killed war boss Gazrot Gore Snapper just to let some jump up rut herd who probably wasn't even as old as him get all zap happy with his grab-a-stick. Fire flared inside his chest. The snort of fire that once ignited wouldn't be doused until it had consumed everything in his path. He pulled the stolen screwdriver from his belt, clutched it in both hands, and took a deep breath. Wah! he muttered, and charged. Zuckrod wasn't expecting it. No orc ever really expected to be charged by anything. Mostly, other stuff tried to avoid being charged by orcs, other than bug eyes, of course, and some of the tougher beakies, and a few of the pointy-eared scrawnies that moved real quick. Oh, and those weird chaos things that glowed and gibbered and just sort of disappeared when you scragged or dacked them, instead of just leaving a body behind like anything decent would. But mainly, other stuff tried to avoid being charged by orcs. And if there was anything in the galaxy that an orc truly didn't expect to be charged by, then it was a snotling. But if there was anything else that an orc didn't expect to be charged by, it was a grot. After all, they were half the height and a quarter the strength, and perhaps an eighth the weight of an orc. What was a grot going to do? In this case, the grot ducked under the jab of the grab a stick, which was more of a reflex than actual aggression, since Zuckrod's brain was still trying to come to terms with what his eyes were telling it, and stabbed the screwdriver right into the runt herd's left knee. Ah! Zuckrod howled. But an orc's pain threshold was high, and they could shrug off wounds that would incapacitate a human. You bloody little git. I'm gonna. He swung his grab-a-stick two-handed, and Snaggi ducked under it. Tear ya! Zuckrod swatted at the grot with the butt end of the haft, but Snaggi rolled to one side with an awareness and agility born of desperation. Zogging off! Snaggi leaped athletically over a swing of the grab-a-stick intended to take his legs out from under him, but Zuckrod's body followed the momentum and the swing around. As the runt herd pivoted, he lashed out with a kick, using the screwdriver impaled leg, and caught Snaggi square in the chest just as he landed. The grot flew backwards, landing in what might have been a pile of junk, or might have been some mechanic's most prized possessions. It was often hard to tell. Right! Zuckrod bellowed, dropping his grab-a-stick and limping towards Snaggi with his fingers outstretched. Try dodging me now. Snaggi was only too willing to try. But unfortunately, his body had other ideas. It generally liked air if it was going to be doing anything athletic, and right now that was a substance in which it was distinctly lacking. He was unable to do anything much more than flail weakly as the runt herd closed in on him with the murdering eyes. Then, astonishingly, Zuckrod staggered again as the electrified jaws of his own grab-a-stick closed on his yet uninjured knee. He collapsed sideways, convulsing, and the extra second or so reprieve gave Snaggi the chance to haul himself back to his feet and lay eyes on his savior. Long live the Revalushun, Scrox said quietly, releasing the grab-a-stick. No, don't do that, Snaggi wailed, but it was too late. Zuckrod already shaking his head and getting his wits back now. He was no longer being electrocuted, and he was going to be up and dangerous in a matter of moments. Give me the stick! Give me the stick! Squawk chucked it to him, and Snaggi caught it, fumbled it, and nearly hit himself in the eye, and then managed to get a proper grip on it in the second attempt. Zuckrod was pushing himself up, letting his arms do most of the work to get him back upright, since one knee still had a screwdriver stuck in it, and the other had jagged tears in the scorched flesh. Snaggi aimed for the runt herd stick and pulled the grabby lever back as far as it could go. The jaw snapped shut under Zuckrod's jaw, and the full charge of the stick flowed out into the young orc's body. Snaggi held on desperately as Zuckrod began spasming, every one of the orc's muscles straining against itself, and made sure he didn't accidentally flick the switch that would turn the current off. Zuckrot screamed, and his flesh began to burn, and his eyes began to melt. But Snaggi held on. He held on until Zuckrot stopped moving completely and was prone on the ground with froth bubbling out of his mouth. You killed him, Cruffink whispered in horror. You killed an orc. A runt herd. I already killed a war boss today, Snaggi told him belligerently, looking around in case a little altercation had been seen, but no one appeared to be paying attention. It was dark, and although orcs and grots could see better at night than humies could, it wasn't their best time. The camp was still in an uproar as well, and there were shouts and roaring engines and any number of incidental scraps going on as orcs in each other's way accidentally picked up the wrong shooter. They got away with it again. This is what I'm talking about, Snaggi hissed victoriously to the others. I said that Gork and Mork talked to me, didn't I? I said their voices. Look at this. We just killed a runt herd, and nothing bad's happening. I'm the chosen Grot. I'm going to lead us out of slavery and into... He paused because he wasn't quite sure about the rest of that sentence, but the other three were looking at him. Something better, he finished as confidently as he could. Lead us. Who? Objected Cruffink. There's only 4 of us. There's a lot more than 4 of us in this camp, Snaggi said gleefully. What was that you said just now, Squawk? Long live the revolution? Squawk repeated. Exactly, Snaggi said, puffing up his chest. It's time to spread the word. And the word is revolution. Within seconds, there was nothing to be seen except for a badly burned dead orc with a hole in one knee that, until recently, had a screwdriver sticking out of it. I hope you enjoyed ORKtober. I'm not going to read the whole book because I don't need our benevolent gods at the Black Library coming for me. But my husband picked out the orc books because he loves the orcs. So this is very different from what I'm used to reading, but it was a lot of fun. I hope you enjoyed ORKtober as much as I did. If you'd like me to read more orc stories, just let me know. I might have him pick out some more. Tomorrow's video is going to be very word bearers driven, and it's very horror Halloweeny. So it might not be for the children, but this has been fun. I hope you all have a fantastic Halloween weekend for everybody who celebrates. And as usual, please like, comment, and subscribe. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one.